It really is worth coming to see this mill. There are very few stone tower mills, and to admire the way David Empringham and his team have restored the Great Haseley Mill is an experience in itself. I'm John Alexander. I was born in Great Haseley, and I've known the windmill since childhood, when we played in the windmill as young children, meeting the gangs from Great Milton and Little Milton. It had been built probably around 1750 to 1800. We don't know the exact date. The whole of this part of Oxfordshire was agricultural and very fertile land which grew corn successfully, and so the mill was in much demand. And millers generally became relatively wealthy because the end product of growing corn, of course, is to produce flour for bread, and in order to achieve that you had to have a mill. And the mill, there was probably only one mill per village, so all the farmers were compelled to bring their crops to that mill. It was in a very parlour state. There were no floors. Most of the machinery had either rusted or disappeared. The sails, there was one sail hanging like a loose tooth on the ruin, and that had to be removed. And they set about stripping the mill and then rebuilding it. In the 1940s, Martin Wood, now Sir Martin Wood, Martin and I agreed to form a charitable trust which acquired the mill. Martin handed over the ruin of the mill, and was extremely generous in giving us money to start the repairs. Finally, after 5 years of work, we had a big event when a crane arrived and hoisted the 14-ton cap back onto the mill.
I'm Andrew Dixon. I've lived in Great Haseley over 30 years, and I've watched every stage of the windmill's restoration. This is real engineering and real craftsmanship. I personally find it very exciting to be able to engage with that. The walls are very thick. This is a building that carries a lot of weight in the mill machinery, but the stones themselves, I would be fairly sure, were quarried locally. If we look up towards the ceiling of the ground floor, you can see this very large wheel which is attached to the lower end of the we'll call it the drive shaft, which runs from top to bottom of the mill. And in fact this wheel, and you can see the teeth around it, is survived all those 100 years since the mill fell out of use. So inside this casing is where the millstones are. The grain that the farmers brought to the mill is in a storage bin on the floor above, and comes down here into this hopper, down this chute, and it goes on its way into the millstone. So that's a fairly simple process. And this is a very simple way of separating the finer flour from the coarser flour. The flour comes in at one end, this turns, and the fine flour falls through this mesh. The coarser meal will go all the way down to this end. All the woodwork you see here and this wonderful profiled cap rotates. The sound we're hearing is the fantail and the drive mechanism turning. The wind has changed since we came up to the cap, when it was very still, and the cap is now being moved so that the windmill sails face direct into the wind.
So the mill stands as a wonderful monument, as a piece of industrial archaeology of great interest to people who want to understand how the countryside worked and how it interfaced with the early engineering and mechanism which has made our current lives easy, but the mill was probably the first step to some sort of industrialization in what had been a very pastoral and rural, quiet existence in the villages of Oxfordshire.